everybody. Thank you very much for tuning in to episode number 4. I'm Thomas, and this is Real Distracted. Thank you very much for tuning in. Episode 4, a big one. I'm really excited. I'm going right off the cuff today. I'm just coming back from the Tampa Bay Comic Con, and what a great experience. The ups and downs, the from knowing that I was going to go last night, or actually early this morning. I didn't buy my ticket till early this morning, like 2 a.m. I wasn't 100% sure if I was going to go. I had a plan on why I was going to go, who I wanted to see for the most part, like the main person I wanted to see. And my whole plan changed. On the way there, it's a really funny story. Sit back, hang with me, you'll enjoy it. If anybody's tuning in that was at Comic-Con because of me kind of spreading the word for the podcast, thank you very much for tuning in. And anybody else is tuning in, thank you. But a special welcome to the people, the folks that I met at Comic-Con. I met all kind of people. Different ages, different heights, different sizes, different backgrounds, different everything. I mean, people were painted everything from, people were painted red, blue, clear, fucking 8 foot tall, 2 foot tall, dogs, kids, everything. I mean, it was so cool. It was every background, but it was so much fun because everybody was there for their love of something. You were there because you loved comic books. You were there because you loved cartoons. There was video games. There was old school video games. There was one guy I would say the best comic book spot that I saw. Nothing against anybody else, but the one that stood out the most, let me not say the best, but was an older guy who had a corner, and his comic book stand was nothing after from 1980 and before. So you had DC, old Action Comics, old Marvel Comics, stuff I don't even know about, like stuff that I couldn't even appreciate. My friend Andy, who's a comic book person, I called him, hey man, I don't even know, it was so much there that I didn't even know. But just to start out, let me say that that was definitely my first time going there. I'd never been to anything like it. I had a blast. Let me get into how it all started, how I ended up going. So the only day that I could have went, so it was Friday, Saturday, and Sunday. Today's August 25th, Sunday, August 25th. So it was the 23rd, Friday, the 24th, Saturday, and the 25th ended today. And the celebrities that were there, most of them were going to be there for the full 3 days, but some of them were only doing Friday and Saturday. Some were only doing Friday. The people that I really wanted to see, the person I really wanted to see was going to be there today. And I saw his name, and I work late. So I saw that they were going to be doing photo ops and like meet and greet. A lot of these guys were starting at 10 a.m. And I'm like, oh man, it is really hard. I just got done working 16 hours Saturday, had very little sleep last night in order for me to go. It was just like, oh man, I really wanted to go. So I got my ass up and I went. But let me back up a little bit. Follow along with me. This will be a fun story. So the first time I've heard of Comic-Con was in 2007, and it was my cousins, my aunt and uncle, my two cousins, Matthew and Joey. Matthew's about 18, Joey's about 16 at the time. They're both in high school, or just like they're like 10th and 12th grade. They come to Florida to visit. They were coming from, I think they lived in Nebraska at the time. And it was right around the time when the first Nolan Batman came out, or the trailer came out. And I think YouTube, I'm like, did I even know about YouTube in 2007? But yeah, of course, you could go online and look videos up and stuff. So my cousin knows that I'm a movie person, somewhat of a comic person. I'm not like a avid comic book reader, but I love movies more than anything, but I love comic book movies. And I did read comics as a kid, mostly Marvel. That was pretty much all I read was Marvel. Had the first Marvel comic cards. I remember those. I regret now. I almost bought the whole set. I almost bought the original. I think it was 1989, the first comic book set, but I didn't do it. The guy wanted $50, and they were missing all the holograms, and I was like, I don't know. But anyways, so my cousin's coming over, and my cousin's 18, and he is like jacked. He's like in really good shape. He's in like Christian Bale Batman shape, and he tells me. He shows me the Batman trailer, and he's like, Christopher Nolan's directing this. And I knew Christopher Nolan from Memento. And I don't know if that's all I knew him from. I knew he did The Following, but Memento was when I heard Christopher Nolan back then, I thought Memento. I'm like, this guy's a genius. With whatever's slipping my mind, I apologize. There's probably some other big film he did that I knew about. But anyways, I knew Memento, and I'm like, wow, this like really dark drama director, they're going to let him do the Batman. This is great. This is like another, like the second coming of a Burton-esque, or, like where it's dark, but he's more dramatic than anything. So I thought that was cool. So we watched the trailer like a million times, and it was Christian Bale. And I knew Christian Bale I've known about Christian Bale from since Empire of the Sun, because I'm a big Steven Spielberg fan, and Empire of the Sun was one of my favorite movies as a kid. I watched that movie a million times, and I remember Christian Bale was like 12 years old, and I knew that name. And then he was in American Psycho, and I don't know, maybe a couple of other things that stood out. I know he was in Newsies. My girlfriend loves that movie. But mainly Psycho, and then he gets Batman. And so my cousin, we watched the trailer a million times, and I remember the bats flying and then blacking out the screen, and the music was amazing, and we're like, whoa, this is so exciting. And my cousin proceeds to tell me, I'm getting to the point about Comic-Con. My cousin proceeds to tell me, I'm like, dude, you are fucking in amazing shape. And his dad, Mark, my uncle, he's in great shape too. He's really lean. I'm like, what are you guys doing? They're like, we go to the gym like every day. We're working out. Matthew's getting ready for Comic-Con next year. He's got his group of friends. He's going to dress as Batman. I'm like, what? He's like, yeah, I'm going to San Diego. And I thought, that's really cool. I'm like, holy shit, you're going to go all the way to the West Coast to go to a comic book and dress up? Like, it didn't sound absurd. That's not the word, but it sounded like, oh, that's like heavy, man. That's like, yeah, it's serious. I didn't know there was anything like that. So that was my first experience hearing about Comic-Con. And then, of course, as the years went by, you start seeing videos, and then I actually met somebody who stood in line and met an actor, and then find out all these celebrities go there. And it's this cool thing. For this long period of time, it was like cool, but not household name. I'm glad it's really big now. It gives people that love comic books, that love animation, that love film, sci-fi, everything. It gives them something to look forward to. And like, there was this huge camaraderie. What I experienced today, I'll get into. There's this huge camaraderie, strangers that you could walk up to. There was, you'd see a woman that's half dressed, but she was dressed as like Jean Grey, or like Storm, and you could be like, hey, cool outfit, and you're not being a creep. Or you see some dude in a big ass costume, or a guy that's all jacked up, and he's dressed like Logan and Wolverine, and you're like, man, you look awesome. And like, I'm not the type of person that's scared to give somebody compliments anyway. I don't mind that. Some people are. Some people are kind of nervous about that, but that's the kind of place that you feel comfortable just being like, yo, your shit looks awesome, man. Great job on that costume, or cool shirt. Today I was wearing my Pulp Fiction shirt. I had to wear it. I knew that's the shirt I was going to wear. And I actually got that shirt at Newberry Comics in Nashua, New Hampshire. So I got that from a cool comic book store in New Hampshire where I used to live. And I wore that, and I had a bunch of compliments. Hey man, great movie. Because it kind of lets, I'm not wearing a costume, but I'm kind of like, hey man, I'm here repping the movies, man. That's my thing, repping the movies with my Tampa hat as always. And I probably wouldn't wear this hat, but I need a haircut. Today was the day to get my haircut, and I'm like, fuck it, I'm going to Comic Con. So I'll maybe I won't wear it next time. But anyways, so I hear about Comic Con, like I said, in 2007 in my late 20s. And then as time goes by, I remember driving around for work in Tampa and seeing bus benches that say Tampa Comic Con. And I'm like, oh shit, that's cool. I remember telling one of my coworkers, he's like, what is that? I'm like, it's comic book. And you're like, it's comic book nerds or whatever. But I'd always wanted to go. For whatever reason, I never did. I remembered I thought it was the first year. I swear, I thought it was the first annual Tampa Comic Con, but I looked and it wasn't. I'll read some of the stats on it. But I remember seeing Carrie Fisher, her face on like bus benches, and it's always in the summer. It was like August, whatever, Carrie Fisher Comic Con 3-day weekend or whatever. And I'm like, oh man, that's awesome. So you can actually meet these people. Then I remember opening up the newspaper, and it was like, at that time, it was like $40, get a picture, and the prices kind of go up. You know what I mean? The price of everything's gone up. Excuse me. So I've never been to Comic Con, and I knew it was coming up this year. Actually, before I get into that, I'm going to read some really interesting stuff about the origins of Comic Con, because you want to know, and maybe people that are listening to the show have, know the origin of Comic Con, but I didn't. So what I found out was the initial idea was in 1969. Comic Con was conceived by Shel Dwarf, Ken Kruger, Richard Alf, and other San Diego comic book enthusiasts in 1969. Their goal was to create a fan event centered around comic books, science fiction, and related popular arts. The first event was in 1970, then known as Golden State Comic Con. It took place March 21st, 1970, at the U.S. Grant Hotel in San Diego, and it was a one-day event that drew around 100 attendees, marking the humble beginnings of what would become a global phenomenon. That's incredible. 100 people, 1970. And for people, let me take a pause. For people who say, people like me don't belong there, people that are not comic book readers, well, I like comics, so maybe not people like me, but strictly movie people or strictly gaming people. Well, let's just stick with movie people. What I read here, what I'm going to read in a second, is interesting because the connection of movies and the comic books, it pushed each other. So early growth, 1972, Comic-Con had expanded to a 3-day event and changed its name to San Diego Comic-Con. The event moved to the El Cortez Hotel and attracted about 300 attendees. Key influences during this time included the rise of comic book superheroes like Spider-Man and the popularity of Star Trek, the Star Trek fan culture. 72, Star Trek, Captain Kirk. So then fast forward, it says 1977. This is the connection right here. This is the interesting connection. Explosion in popularity. In 1977, the release of Star Wars was a significant factor in Comic-Con's rapid growth. The film's massive success ignited a new wave of science fiction fandom, leading to a surge in attendance. By the late 1970s, Comic-Con was attracting over 5,000 fans annually. So you go from 70, 100 people, 72, 300, go to 77, now you're getting 5,000. Now, the 1980s boom. As superhero movies and comic book culture gained mainstream traction in the 1980s, Comic-Con continued to grow. By 1988, the attendance had reached approximately 13,000, spurred by the popularity of films like Superman, 1978, Batman, 1989, as well as the success of a comic book series such as X-Men and Watchmen. Then you go to the 90s surge. The 90s saw further expansion with the rise of blockbuster franchises like Jurassic Park, 1993, and X-Men animated series, which was great. 1995, Comic-Con moved to the San Diego Convention Center with attendance surpassing 30,000. The event also began to attract major Hollywood studios and television networks, cementing its status as a key pop culture event. So what a change. What a change. And it's crazy to think about 1970 to 1990 only being 20 years as far as the films, the style of films, the culture. Let's just even keep it in the sci-fi genre or the comic. Let's just keep it in that genre of what George Lucas did with Star Wars and even Spielberg did with Jaws is incredible. Then you go to the mainstream dominance. By the early 2000s, Comic-Con had evolved into a major entertainment industry event. The release of X-Men in 2000, which was such a big deal. I'll rewind a little bit after this. The release of X-Men 2000 and Spider-Man in 2002, films along with Lord of the Rings trilogy 0103, drove fan interest to new heights. In 2004, attendance reached over 75,000, with Comic-Con becoming the go-to platform for studios to premiere trailers and make major announcements. How cool is that? And record-breaking years. I'll go back to I want to say something about the X-Men. Record-breaking years. 2010 to present. The 2010s solidified Comic-Con's place as the ultimate pop culture convention, with attendance regularly exceeding 130,000. Marvel's cinematic universe, particularly the success of The Avengers 2012, played a crucial role in driving this growth. Comic-Con became the premier stage for launching new projects, with studios, celebrities, and creators using the event to engage directly with the fans. How awesome it is. So you see that comic books, yes, awesome. That's actually the origin. That's the source material for all of the popular shit that we all love. And if you think about a comic book purist that might not like the film, so the time in my life, I'll speak for myself. So the time in my life when I read comic books the most was sixth grade. No, let's say third grade, fourth grade, fifth grade, sixth grade, seventh grade. And then I was out doing crazy shit by then. But so, let's say 10 to 13 for me. And that's probably the prime reading years. That's the focused age group for comic books, I would say, or, a little bit older or whatever. But I mean, not now. Now there's all kind of shit. There's stuff that's adult only, but just what comic books were at the time. So I actually spoke to a comic book shop owner on my way here before I came to record. I stopped by a comic book shop and I asked the guy, it was just out of coincidence. I'm leaving Comic Con and I see a comic book shop. I haven't driven through this part of the newer neighborhood where I live, and I'm driving through, see a comic book store. I'm like, hey, and I wanted to go check out and see what he had. And I was like, hey, so what got you into comic books? And he said, my dad was a barber. He used to have comic books out for people to read. And I was a kid and I picked them up and I said, what was your first love? Because everybody has, for comic books, I think everybody has a first love of what drew them in. And my answer is Daredevil. I like Daredevil. I like that character and the issues that I read. And his was Ghost Rider. I was like, hey, that's cool. He said Ghost Rider and something else. But so it was just, just an example of, at the time it was for, young people. So where was I going with that? So like I said, so the time that I read comic books, which was not very heavily, but the time that I read comic books was, say 10 to 14. And for me, that would say 1989 to 1994. So during those years, 1989, Batman came out. Tim Burton's Batman. Michael Keaton, the Batman of all Batmans comes out. Then the X-Men series was amazing. And then the X-Men the Marvel cards. So it went from comic books to hopping off the pages to other media. And I think those cards were amazing because somebody that couldn't get their hands on a collection of comic books, you could have these pack of cards and you could read the stats. That was I think that was genius marketing. I got to look into that. But to release those cards for kids that liked baseball, and it was you either liked baseball cards or comic books, you could like both. And it's here, we'll find something right in the middle. And it would have the stats. The Marvel card would be Professor X, and it would have a 1 through 10, and it would be physical strength, very low, mental strength. And you look at Professor X, and it was the highest of everything. And it had these bars of agility, speed, strength. What was it? Was it superhuman or regular human? I remember Captain America on the back. His was special. It said his strength was, and it said peak strength. Or no, peak human is what it said. I remember asking my uncle, what's peak human mean? I'm reading the back of the card. I'm like, what's peak human? And he had to explain to me. Oh, that's so funny. So getting back to my point. So people that let's say there's comic book purists out there, which there are. Excuse me, throat's dry. So say there's comic book purists out there, which there are. And anytime a comic book movie comes out and they're just fuck that, man. X-Men, fuck you. Spider-Man, that sucked, man. Or the first Captain America movie, which came out in the 80s, which was trash. The first Spider-Man movie was trash. There was a guy on a cable. But the thing is that's what we wanted forever. You would open up, I think it was Wizard. You would open up the Wizard, the comic book magazine, or you would open up comic books themselves, or then there would be little articles talking about, the Fox is thinking about, it's finally coming out, the X-Men movie, they're making a movie. And I remember being kids and just begging, wishing, hoping and praying that one day a live action X-Men movie would come out. So when it came out, it's I don't know, that same group of people that were hoping that they couldn't wait to see a great movie, a great live action comic book movie. X-Men was a good one. You're not going to make everybody happy, but it was awesome. And it's really cool reading about Comic-Con, going back to specifically Comic-Con, to see that the movies pushed the comic book world and they kind of fed off of each other. And I think that's amazing. Star Wars, like, that just goes to show, like, George Lucas kind of bridged that gap. And they actually did they did these full-size Marvel, not that I know a shitload about comic books, but Marvel did a Star Wars. I saw that when I was at a comic book shop in Seattle. So anyways, moving forward, global influence. Today, San Diego Comic Con attracts fans from around the world and has inspired numerous spin-off conventions globally, like the one I went to today. It's no longer just about comics. It's become a celebration of all aspects of pop culture, including movies, TV shows, video games, and more. Last part, legacy and impact. From its modest beginnings with 100 attendees to a cultural phenomenon drawing over 130,000 fans annually, Comic-Con has played a pivotal role in bridging the gap between niche fandoms and mainstream entertainment. It's now a key influencer in the industry, shaping trends, launching careers, and bringing fans together and creators in an unparalleled way. I think that's really awesome. And so now going to Tampa. Okay, so let me back up a little bit. So I told you about how I first heard of Comic-Con, and then me hearing about it in Tampa. I thought that was interesting. So now I'm going to fast forward like I do. I kind of do these time jumps in my episodes. So, and again, today was amazing. Let me just say that. Let me just talk a little bit about that before I talk about the people that I met were awesome. So I said I was going to do show and tell. So we'll get into this first. So I made this last night. This one's a little crinkled up. I printed 100 of these and I got 2 left. So I passed out 98 of them, and every one of them, I handed it to a person. So if you're listening because I handed you one of these, thank you very much. I want you to comment and email me, and I want to mention your name. Anybody who is listening to this episode, ding, 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 listener attention. Anybody who is listening to this episode because I gave you one of these at Comic-Con, email me, realdistractedpod@gmail.com, or comment, because you're allowed to comment on my Spotify or YouTube, either one. Comment and let me know your name, and I'll shout out and say, hey, tell me what you were, if you're wearing a costume, or, what you were there for, or whatever. Or because I met a lot of shop guys too, a lot of guys that had booths and stuff. But it was so cool to meet all of those people, all of you, if you're listening. But every flyer that I handed out, it was to a specific person. Sometimes I would ask the person the name, but I would either start up a conversation or I would chat, and I'd say out of that 98 that I passed out, half of them was a genuine conversation that I was talking to somebody about. Hey, I got to ask their name. I told them my name. And then I also mentioned to a lot of them that I'm an aspiring filmmaker, and I'm putting in place, getting a script together, knock on wood, and meeting actors that want to work and even just have small roles. That is my plan for the future. And I'm at the beginning phase of that. And going to Tampa Bay Comic Con was that just helped give me momentum, and it was inspirational because I got to meet people that there was a group of guys, 2 guys dressed as Deadpool. I got some pictures with them. They were like, yeah, man, I'd love to do some. So that's a whole nother story. So today was just such a great experience. I haven't even got into meeting the couple of celebrities that I got to meet. So just meeting the people there was great. And I would do that again in a heartbeat. In fact, there's an Ocala one, and Ocala is outside of Tampa by about an hour and a half, a little bit more in Central Florida. And that's coming in, I think, the end of September. And the headliner for that is going to be forgot the young lady's name, the actress who, the lead from the show Fallout. So I'd like to go to that and just do the same thing, meet a bunch of cool people. I didn't know what to expect today. I didn't know. I was by myself. My girlfriend had to work. One of my friends that I wanted to go, he didn't want to go. It's actually a funny joke. Like, I texted him about, I won't say his name, but Saturday I texted him. I was like, hey, last day of Comic Con is tomorrow. It's $35. I'm going. He said, I'm going to need a lot more than $35 to get me to go see a consortium of grown men in capes, like kind of making fun of it. Because he's one of those things that's just, everything's just not cool. You know, he's one of those guys that's so cool. It's like, he's like too cool. And I'm like, fuck that, man. I love this shit. And, you know, whatever. It's not everybody's thing, so I shouldn't really. He's got his thing, so. But anyways, so I'm preparing to go. I'll tell you more about this flyer. So I decide that I'm going to go, and I'm like, hey, well, I've got my podcast, and my podcast is about movies, and I'd like to share it with people because it's something that I'm happy to do. I have fun doing this. It's something I'm proud of. I'm working on it. It's going to be getting better and better. Eventually, I'm going to have interviews, and who knows? It's just the beginning. So I'd like to have, you know, listeners come along for this ride and watch the growth and see where the show goes over time. So I thought, hey, let me pass out some flyers. So I made a flyer last night, and actually I didn't make the flyer until I'm like, how could I get something printed? This is 9:00 at night. How can I get something printed? Back in the day, you used to be able to go to 24-hour print shops like Kinko's or whatever. And I couldn't find anything like that. There's like FedEx bought out Kinko's, and I'm like, I don't know. I can't find any kind of 24-hour. And then there's like something that says they can do it overnight, but I'm like, I'm not going to have any of this stuff ready. So I almost gave up on the idea, and then it hit me. I'm like, wait a minute. What would the cost be like? I'm like, what about 1 hour photo? I could do a 1 hour photo. And that's exactly what I did. I went to Walgreens. Thank you, Walgreens. I go online. I find out which Walgreens have the 1 hour photo. And then I go to work. And I like graphics. I like making flyers. It's something that, you know, I'm okay at, and I'm comfortable doing it. So I put together a flyer in about 5 minutes, and I got it over to Walgreens, and then I call Walgreens as soon as I sent it over. I put the order in. I got 100 of them, 4x6, glossy. Put the QR code on there, everything. I had to create a QR code, so I'm doing this all in a rush. I mean, I'm like, oh shit, if I'm going to make this happen, I got to get this shit going. So after I put the order in at Walgreens for this bad Larry right here, even though it's a little wrinkled, I put the order in, and it says, it's 9:05 p.m. It says it'll be ready at 9:25 or 9:35. So it's like 30 minutes it'll be ready. I'm thinking 100 prints, awesome. And maybe it's just automated. Maybe it's just now a big machine that just spits them, cuts them, stacks them, packs them, and racks them, whatever you call it. And I was wrong. That's not how it goes. It is very automated, but not without a human being. Not without one of them humans. We need a human over here up in this department. They needed a human. So I call 5 minutes after I put the order in. Hey, and it's funny because I put the order in my name and half my name and half my girlfriend's name. So I was like, Sarah, what's the first name? Sarah and or Thomas, because I didn't know if they needed an ID to pick it up, because I didn't know if my girlfriend was going to have to pick it up, if they were going to say, hey, I was working till 11:30 p.m. I didn't know if I was going to even be able to make it. So I put the order in, and then I called 5 minutes later. Yes, this is Walgreens. And the guy sounded a little overwhelmed. Very nice guy. His English wasn't great, so I didn't know what he was talking about. I said, hey, I put an order in for the 1 hour photo. It says it'll be ready by this time. Is this something that's just automatic? Is somebody over there? And he sounded very nice, very helpful, but he sounded very overwhelmed. He said, I'm the only person in this store. I have to start the machine. And I said, oh, okay. It's 100 prints of that. And he goes, 100. Oh, geez, I don't know. And I'm like, oh, no. That means I don't know could mean that I'm not getting shit tonight. So I'm like, what do you need to make it happen? He goes, so I asked him, do they automatically start printing? Or do you have to do it? Do you have to do something with it? And he goes, no. I have to start the machine. And I'm the only one here, and I haven't started it. And I'm like, and it's a good thing I called, because he goes, call me back. I'll start the machine. So then I go back to work at my job. I start doing work, and I got busy. And then it got a little late, and I'm like, oh, shit. And I call back. And then now there's another guy there. So another guy must have came back from break or showed up or something. And another guy answers the phone, and he says, oh, I don't know. And he's in the photo department. He says, oh, I don't know. And I'm like, oh, man, where's the other guy? And the other guy picks up the phone, and he goes, yes, I have it. They're ready. Come pick it up. And I said, you're open till midnight? I'll be there. So I got there like 10 minutes before they closed. I got the things, and that's all she wrote. And I brought them with me. Actually, I got in my car to leave. I'm rushing out the door because I want to meet. I haven't even got into who I wanted to meet. So I'm excited because I wanted to hurry up and get there, but I'm also, am I forgetting something? I have ADHD, as you can see in the flyer and in the podcast. I truly do have ADHD, and it affects my life tremendously. It is ingrained into every single thing that I do. I lose focus, and people that have ADHD totally understand. People that are loved ones or family members with people who have ADHD, they completely understand. As much as you want to be able to focus and get out the door just like that, it not gonna fucking happen. It's very hard because you cannot control the. I want to say you can't control how much focus you have. You can work on it. You got to work really hard. You got to adapt to it. I always use this analogy with ADHD, that it's like having a missing limb. I don't want to, nothing against people that have missing limbs. Like my best friend since first grade when I was a kid, he was born with a missing arm. It's not as bad. It's nothing like that. I'm just trying to use it as an analogy, just for the purposes of explaining. Because it's like somebody who has to, or let's say wear a back brace, or someone that has to wear a false leg. It's like, yeah, you have a missing limb. Yeah, you got ADHD, or your brain has trouble focusing, but with a little extra help, you can blend in and have a normal life just like everybody else. You just have to work a little harder. You just have to spend a little bit more time getting ready. it takes you longer to get out the door. It takes you longer to prepare to go to work or whatever, to focus, whatever. Just like it takes somebody time to put on like a prosthetic leg and it's a little uncomfortable and they have to remember that it's there. It's kind of like that. Like you live life, with this shit. So anyways, enough about that. So I go out the door, and again, I'm not comparing it. It's, metaphorically or, I'm just using an analogy. Like somebody that has something missing that has to work extra hard, maybe like a learning disability. I think ADHD is a learning disability, but you get what I'm saying. But, so I'm trying to get out the door and I'm like, oh man, I was looking at my phone hoping that the Amazon delivery person was going to come early today because I had a DVD box set of the series that I wanted to bring to the person to the series is called The Offer. And the show is so amazing. I'm going to do an episode just on this coming up soon. But The Offer is so amazing. Excuse me. So I get out the door and I get in my car and I'm rushing to leave. And I go to start my car and I'm pulling out to drive away. And I'm like, holy crap, I forgot two important things. One of them is the flyers. The other one was like my sunglasses or something. I didn't even think about the flyers. It was like I went back for like my sunglasses or something like that. I get out the door and I'm checking Amazon. That's what is making my brain. Since I woke up, I'm hoping that my box set of the show, The Offer, which is a great miniseries, and that's based on the making of The Godfather. And it goes so much more into the connection in that show is just right up my alley. It's like, I hate having to compare things, but if I had to put it in a nutshell, it's like, if I was forced to compare it to something else, would be like, it's like The Sopranos mixed with Entourage mixed with true crime. And it's just brilliantly written. The performances are amazing. So who I really wanted to see today, finally, is his name's Dan Fogler, if I'm saying that right. Fogler, but I think it's Dan Fogler. And Dan Fogler was the guy who played Francis Ford Coppola in this miniseries, The Offer, that I love so much. But everything that I've seen Dan Fogler in, I really love. He's also he plays the really funny uncle in the show The Goldbergs. He had massive success and had a big role in, co-starred in the Fantastic Beast films. I think there was 2 of them. Those were great. Like big budget. He's done a whole lot of stuff. I actually just pulled up something on him. So Dan Fogler gained major recognition for his role as William Barfay in the Broadway musical, The 25th Annual Putnam County Spelling Bee. His performance earned him a Tony Award for Best Featured Actor in a Musical in 2005. Oh, the fucking awesome movie. His film debut was in 2007 in Balls of Fury, where he played Randy Daytona, a former ping pong prodigy. The film showcased his comedic timing and helped establish him in Hollywood. Diverse roles throughout his career, Fogler has showcased his versatility by taking on a variety of roles, both in comedy and drama. Notable films include Fanboys, 2009, Take Me Home Tonight, 2011, and Don Peyote, 2014, which he also directed. Another reason why I wanted to meet this guy. This guy he's done music. He's done writing. He's done Broadway. He's wrote and directed his own film. Blockbuster franchise 2016 to present. Fogler is perhaps best known to global audiences for his role as Jacob Kowalski, a lovable nomad or non-magical person in the Fantastic Beasts film series, part of the Harry Potter universe. His portrayal of Jacob adds heart and humor to the franchise, making him a fan favorite. Yeah, that character, he's so lovable and he's so good. He kind of glues that movie together, believe it or not, with all of the, like, I remember Aunt Sue, she wasn't my aunt, but she's one of my best friends. She's 70-something-year-old woman who was like my family. I loved her so much. She was amazing. She just passed away last year. But I remember hanging out with her, and she loved the Fantastic Beasts, and she didn't like anything sci-fi. There was nothing sci-fi that she liked, but she loved the heart of that story. And at the center of that was Jacob Kowalski. He was so amazing in that. Television work. In addition to his film work, Fogler has had notable roles on television. He appeared in The Goldbergs as Uncle Marvin, and more recently, he joined the cast of The Walking Dead as Luke, a music teacher turned survivor in the post-apocalyptic world. I forgot about him doing The Walking Dead. Shame on me, but I stopped watching The Walking Dead at like season 7 for whatever reason. I don't know why. I'm not saying it got bad. I'm just saying it maybe that like kind of like that phase of my life. I think something else was going on, or I think it was because I started paying attention to other shit, and I was probably because I was having a major drinking problem. And anyways, that's part of my story. I got sober in 2019, but voice acting. Fogler has lent his voice to several animated projects, including Horton Hears a Who, 2008, Kung Fu Panda, in 2008 as well. His unique voice has made him a sought-out actor for animated films and television series. Creative endeavors. Beyond acting, Fogler is a multi-talented artist. He's an accomplished graphic novelist with works like Moon Lake and Brooklyn Gladiator. His creative vision extends into directing and producing, highlighting his passion for storytelling across various mediums. Personal life, last note, Dan Fogler is married to Jody Capes Fogler, whom he shares with 2 children, known for his down-to-earth personality and remains connected to his Brooklyn roots, often incorporating his personal experiences into his work. Side note, I love Mike Tyson, and I've got this special Mike Tyson shirt that came from his website. And Mike Tyson's from Brooklyn, and I think pretty much anybody from Brooklyn probably loves Mike Tyson. And I thought about, oh man, that'd be a cool gift to bring him. I thought about, because everybody's asking people for shit. Hey, sign this, listen to me. It's another funny story. Before I end, I'll tell you the other celebrities I actually did meet, but I didn't get to meet him. That's the thing. So what I hoped for was, I hoped that I was going to pass out the flyers like I did, meet some people, and the lineup was incredible for Tampa Bay Comic Con. I'll list off some of them. Artist Alley, let's see. So Dan Fogler was one of them. So one of the headliners was Hayden Christensen, who played in Star Wars, who played Darth Vader and Anakin Skywalker. Elijah Wood, huge. Andy Serkis, huge. Lord of the Rings. Charlie Cox, who plays Daredevil. Harvey Gillian, which I recognize his face, but I don't really know him. He was in Harley Quinn, Puss in Boots. What We Do in the Shadow. Billy D. Williams was there. I didn't see him. But, that's Lando, Lando Calrissian. And he also played Harvey Dent in the first Batman. And there's Edward James Olmos. And then who I did get to meet was Robert Patrick. What a cool experience. I got to shake his hand. There was nobody in his line. And I see him and I get nervous. And he's got the crazy haircut, just like you see in like now. I mean, this guy's still working. This guy's been working for a long time. He's been pretty steadily working. He's working on the second season of Peacemaker. In fact, he said, I was just on set Thursday. I said, I love Peacemaker. I love that show. I love you in it. I know you're the bad guy, but I love you in it. You're great. And he said, thanks. And he smiled. He said, I love the show. So he's somebody that I got to meet, shake his hand, and I was going to take a picture. You got to pay for a picture. I didn't have any cash on me. I went to ATM, walked away, got the cash. He was gone. He went on a lunch break, and I didn't get to see him. But, other people that were there, Tom Welling, the guy who plays Superman in Smallville, Michael Rosenbaum, who's also in Smallville, who's got a great podcast. I think it's called Inside of You. I've been listening to that more lately. Priscilla Presley was there. Vincent D'Onofrio was there. Mark Pellegrino, who was in Better Call Saul. Dave Foley from Kids in the Hall, Fargo, the Fargo series. He has a great role. Chandler Riggs, he's also in The Walking Dead. He plays Carl. The Nasty Boys, the wrestlers. So there was a lot of people, a lot of animators, a lot of voice actors. The Little Mermaid, oh my God, I called my girlfriend to tell her I saw her. I didn't go and speak to her, but Jodie Benson, the famous, talented, amazing actress who voiced Ariel in Little Mermaid, and she did all the singing. But so they were kind of the booths. It's at the Tampa Convention Center, which is huge. It's like right in the middle of downtown, overlooks the water, 3 floors of just big convention halls. There's big open, like there's one level that's just huge open floor. And that's where the comic book people, there's everybody there from people selling video games. There's people there doing face paint. There was it was, I guess, the first year that they did the whole Blockbuster experience, which I didn't go in. I think you had to sign up for that and pay for it. But I saw a Deadpool there, and he had an amazing Deadpool costume. And he was one of the people that I handed my flyer to. And I was like, hey, man, check out my podcast. You might like it. I love it. It's really fun. And he just silently said, okay. And I said, can I get a picture of you? And just really, I didn't even ask him to do it. Just being a really nice guy, he held up my flyer in his photo. So I thought, oh, that's so cool. So the whole time, so after I walk by Dan Fogler's his booth. He's not there. So there's a row of booths with these waiting lines, and each celebrity has like a handler or somebody handling their, the business side of things. And there was nobody there for him. And I saw a sign that says, I'll be back at 1:30. This is the other end of the story. It says, Dan Fogler, I'll be back at 1:30. I'm sorry, I'll be back at 2:30 because there was a 1:30 Walking Dead panel, which he was on, of course. So the whole time I'm walking around and I'm already tired. I've got like 4.5 hours of sleep. I want to go home. I'm tired. Excuse me. But I'm looking at my Amazon to see if they delivered the offer DVD set so I could run home. That was my plan. I wanted to run home, go pick it up, go back to the thing, which would have never happened because this is downtown. It was a madhouse down there because there was thousands of people walking around. Costumes, families, parking was you had to find parking, then you had to walk in the building, go through security, all that stuff. So it was very unlikely. I guess it wasn't meant to be, but I did get to meet, Robert Patrick, and I totally forgot. Here's the other show and tell. I got this. He was the first celebrity that I saw, And he wasn't in a booth like the other ones were. I'll leave it in the case, actually. I just bought this little slipcase. I got to meet DMC from Run-DMC. And I bought this is issue number 1. I had no idea that he had a comic book. And DMC, I can't really read who wrote it. On the back it says, gorgeous, frenetic, forward-thinking, beautifully illustrated, fresh, modern, and full of edge. They definitely know how to channel a much-needed vibe into the medium in a fresh new way. Phil Jimenez, storyteller at Marvel and DC Comics. Oh, I can read it a little bit. It's 1985 in New York City. Wild style graffiti covers subway cars as b-boys break and spin in playgrounds and on street corners. Drugs and crime rule the streets. A terrifying plague is brewing and in the shadows. In this 1985, however, the city's brand new guardian angels wear spandex capes, wielding their gadgets and their superpowers to clean up the city. Even if their methods hurt more people than they help, it seems like only some of New York's residents are benefiting from these vigilantes' protection. The rest whisper the name of another hero, DMC. You see, in this 1985 legendary hip-hop pioneer and Rock and Roll Hall of Fame inductee Daryl McDaniels, Run-DMC. He never rocks the mic to become one of the music's most enduring icons. Instead, he dons the tracksuit and Adidas sneakers to defend the city's marginalized citizens against supervillain and superhero alike, leaving no traces besides the imprint of his knuckle rings on his opponent's faces. DMC, the inaugural title from Daryl Makes Comics, imagines an alternate history that blends traditional comic book storytelling with the pressures and anxiety of 1980s NYC and explores how we got to where we are now. DMC is a superhero for those who need it the most. How awesome. So this is his first episode, or first issue, number 1, and he signed it, The King of Rock, DMC. And I thought that was so awesome. I'll post a picture that I got with him. I just walked up and I saw him and I was like, oh, let me not nerd out. I'm like, this guy is part of, I'm such a fan of hip hop. It's my favorite genre of music. It's the music that I know about the most. If we start talking about music, that just happens to be the music that I know the most. That's like my go-to since I was young. So the impact that Run-DMC made on the world it's just leaps and bounds. Like I was explaining what Run-DMC did for music and taking hip hop when they did Walk This Way with Aerosmith, how that turned hip hop and Run-DMC into a household name. So it was just amazing to meet him. And the guy was in great shape. He was super nice. I said, "Hey, my name's Thomas. Nice to meet you, sir. I'm a huge fan. You're a hero." And he's like, "Where are you from?" I said, "I'm from Tampa, Florida." He said, "You born and raised?" It's like, "No, I'm actually from Davie, Florida, South Florida." He's like, "Well, what'd you move to Tampa for?" I was like, "It's a long story. I moved when I was a kid." He was being nice by asking me, which I could have told him. He was asking me. I don't want to tell him my whole life story. But one of the things that I found interesting about the celebrities, what I found was, imagine these guys sitting there, and it's really nice because, okay, I'm going to go backwards now. Hang on one second. So I was listening to Mike Rosenbaum's Inside of You. So he's an actor. He's on the inside. He interviews other actors. and he was interviewing Michael Biehn from The Terminator, Aliens, and he was in The Abyss, like my favorite movie. And he was also in Tombstone. Michael Bihn's an amazing actor. So Rosenbaum is interviewing Michael Biehn, and Michael Biehn is just this straight shooter. He's telling him all these crazy stories, how he used to do coke and he had a problem with drinking, and how he turned his life around, and how things were in Hollywood coming up in the late 70s, early 80s, meeting James Cameron, working on Terminator, his thoughts on other actors. He was really blunt about actors he didn't like, how the actors that he really did like, people that he was friends with. He was friends with Bill Paxton, losing him. He lost a friend. It was really sad. But they both do Comic Cons. They both travel and do the circuit. And he asked him, Michael Rosenbaum asked Michael Biehn, what do you think about that? He's like, oh, I love it. He's like, it's not work. And they both agreed that they didn't feel like it was work, because you're not having to portray a character. You don't have to think, okay, what's my motivation? What is this guy like? Is this guy a piece of shit? Is this guy sad? Is he a good guy? Is he happy? Is he funny? What is his motivation? Like that is work as an actor. But when you're just being yourself, and then you've got people coming to you, and can you imagine people just coming to you all day long going, I love you, I love you, I love you. Like, fuck, man, stroke my ego. Like, I love you, I love what you did. Da, 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 da. So they're like, from my experience with the two people that I did meet, DMC and Robert Patrick, it was like they wanted to talk to me more. And I was telling somebody at the Comic Con today that I felt like such a dipshit, because I'm telling Robert Patrick how much I like him, and how I was listening to a podcast where James Cameron was speaking about him. And I was like, oh, I'm great. He's my favorite filmmaker. You're amazing. He was saying how great you were and how you were the perfect pick for the T-1000. And he was just like, and I should have just asked him questions. I should have just shut the fuck up and asked him questions. I'm just being honest. I'm pretty open book type of person. It makes me think about when I do interviews, how I'm going to that's something that I'm going to have to work on. I can clearly go from one thing to the next and talk and just keep moving. But when it comes to, it's something that I'm going to have to work on for interviews. But that's all right. It'll be fun, and that's just how it's going to be. But I had a really good time today. Oh, yeah, some of the other, before I go. So, like I said, I met a bunch of guys with shops. I keep calling them shops, but they had booths. I keep thinking of them as like little shops, like I was on a little city. I was in a little comic book city. That's what it felt like. I was in a little comic book city, and I had all these characters. There was a guy that was, shit, man. There was a 7'3" guy, and this little chick. She was an Asian chick, and she was maybe like in her early 20s, and she was dressed up like some pixie. I don't know what character, I don't know what it was. And she was talking to this guy. She was like 4 foot. She was like 5 foot nothing, and this guy's like 7'3". And she's just looking up, and I just walked around the corner, and they were talking to each other. I was like, oh, that's an odd couple, just height-wise. And then she's like, thank you. Nice talking to you. Thanks for letting me talk to you. And she walked away, and it was so funny because it was like cute, because she was like, probably walked up to the guy and said, you're really tall. Can I talk to you? And that's just how, it was just kind of that vibe there. Like, I didn't feel, and there was thousands of people there, and I didn't feel any animosity towards anybody for a single moment. That just made me really like that environment even more. And before I go, so I'll show you, this is what I got. So they had cards for the original Batman movie, I got a couple of cards. Special advice for Batman. And then the strangest thing was, oh yeah, I remember when I was a kid, I was probably 10 years old, and I had the poster of the Batmobile, and it had all the stats on it. It was a big poster, and it had the Batmobile, except it was like the profile of the Batmobile, and it showed like the horsepower, the length of the car, the torque, and all these like fictitious numbers, and it says engine, and the engine said jet turbine engine. And I remember asking my uncle when I was a kid, "What's a turbine engine?" Like I didn't know, and he was just like trying to explain what a turbine engine is to a kid, especially if you don't know what the fucking a turbine engine is. I always think whenever I see this car, I always think of that moment. So this guy has these obscure cards, and he doesn't want a whole lot of money. So if anybody remembers the Superman movies, Christopher Reeve's best Superman ever, I didn't know that they made cards as well, but it was cards for Superman 3. And this was the one I remember. And he said Superman 3. And I was like, I know that one. That's the one that had Richard Pryor in it. The weird one, right? The weird movie. And he was like, yep. So I got these cards for like $3 for like $5. They were like buy one, get one free, or 3 for $5, something like that. And then there was so many weird characters in Superman 3. So I got those. And to end on a really positive note, I really appreciate you guys tuning in. I had a really great time today. I'm trying to think of what I'm not touching on, but one of the things, so I'll share a little bit personally. So in my life right now, I don't want to go too far, but in my life right now, what I'm struggling with right now is to find my tribe, my group of people. I had a lot of friends. So I'm from Tampa, but I moved to New Hampshire in 2019. I moved back in 2022. And, you know, my best friend died when I was 26. I just lost another really good friend this past year. I've been struggling a little bit with depression and working a lot and trying to focus, going to school full time, going back to college full time. It's been rough. So I have this screenplay for these short films. I have a few ideas that I want to I really want to get a group together. Like that's the plan. That was the plan in New Hampshire. And then I ended up having to move. I met the love of my life and I moved back to Florida. But I know that I have multiple great films in me. But to make a film, you need a group of people. You need a tribe of people. And for me to go today, I was by myself and I was like, I don't give a fuck. I'm going to go and make the best of it. I think that even if I didn't meet anyone from there, even if, no one contacts me or whatever from there, and I did meet some people that we talked about doing a short film, and I'm like, hey, I need actors. It's not going to make any money, but I promise that if I make a film, that anybody that participates in it, where if there's ever 1 cent made, it's going to be shared equally, whatever that means as far as, but that's coming up in the near future. But anyways, long story short, today was a great, it marked a really positive thing for me personally. And I'm really grateful that I got the chance to go today. And anybody, like I said, anybody that's tuning in that was there, reach out, hit me up in the comments. And I really appreciate anybody listening, tuning in. Thank you very much. That's been Real Distracted episode 4. And this week, I usually interact with the listeners. So this week, I want to, the question that I'm going to, anybody who comes back with the most interesting answer, I'm going to say, if you could go to Comic Con, what would be your go-to genre? Would it be what would be the specific thing that you would be the most excited about? Would it be a certain celebrity? Would it be the comic books? Would it be the old comic books? Would it be the video games? Would it be the TV shows? Or anything that I've talked about? What, specifically, or the celebrities that I named that were there? Let me know. Anybody and then I'll shout you out on the next episode. But hey guys, thank you for tuning in. I really appreciate it. I had a blast. And we'll see you next time. Thanks. Peace.